Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Jacob is alone. He's alone because nobody he knows and nothing he knows can help him. He's by himself. You ever been in a situation where you were all alone? Oh, you may have had folk around you, but you might as well been by yourself, because nothing around you could make a difference. He's alone. He's by himself. He's been stripped. Now watch this. He's got a problem. His brother's after him. He prays to God. After he prays to God, things get worse. After he's talked to God, somebody shows up at night and wrestles him until daybreak. Verse 25. And when he, the stranger, saw that he, Jacob, had not prevailed against him. When this stranger saw that Jacob wasn't quitting, that Jacob wasn't throwing in the towel, that Jacob wasn't giving up, that Jacob wasn't just running away. When he saw he didn't prevail against him, he touched the socket of his thigh. And the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated when he wrestled with him. So the man had to disconnect something and make it worse. See, when God is trying to break you, he'll make it bad. But if you're not responding, he'll make it worse. He's trying to move your core, the thing that you are counting on to be able to deliver you. Verse 26. Then he says, the stranger says, I didn't hurt you now. Let me go. Okay. That means that Jacob was holding on, even with a dislocated hip. So he's hurting and holding. You didn't miss that, did you? He's hurting and holding. It's easy when God is trying to break you to let go of God. It's easy when God is trying to strip you to say, I don't want it anymore. But Jacob said, you hurt me, but I'm still going to hold you. He says, I am not going to let you go. He says, I am not going to let you go. Verse 26, until, somebody say until, you bless me. Wait a minute now. All we know, the stranger doesn't have a name. This guy has come at night when I'm already scared. This man is wrestling with me. Now this man has dislocated me, and I've gone from trying to win a fight to trying to get a blessing. How do I move from fighting for my life to saying, bless me? Well, the only way you ask somebody to bless you is if you they have the ability to do that. When the stranger dislocates his hip, because it doesn't happen till then, when his strength is gone, it dawns on Jacob, this is not a human match. It's a man, but it's not human. There's more to this battle than just the fight I'm in. I'm in the fight of my life, but there's more to this battle than the fight that I'm in. Something spiritual is occurring here. That's why he asked for a blessing. That's spiritual. So he recognizes, and he doesn't recognize it until the dislocation happens, that this is a spirit. So here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to mistake the hand of God for the hand of man. See, because he's wrestling a man, but he's really dealing with God. If all you see is what you see, you do not see all there is to be seen. God may use something physical to take you to a place that's spiritual. He may use something that you can see, touch, taste, smell, and hear when he's only invaded that to take you to a place that gets him to have your undivided attention. And if you try to push him off up here, he's going to touch something down there. And he will fight until you're hurt bad enough. I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. You know, many times in the scripture, Jesus would pretend like he was going to keep going. The disciples were on the water. They were struggling. Jesus was walking on the water. And when he got to the boat, it says, and he kept walking like he would pass them by. In Luke 24, it says, when the disciples on the Emmaus Road walked home and they finally got to their house, Jesus kept going until they invited him back. What Jesus is asking is, how bad do you want it? Do you really want me? Verse 27. So he said to him, the man says to Jacob, what is your name? Okay, to follow this. I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. Oh, you want a blessing? Mm-hmm. What's your name? Remember, naming in the Bible refers to your nature, your character, not just your nomenclature. We do that with nicknames. Like we call somebody slim, that means they're skinny. So the nickname is reflecting something about them. You call somebody red because they got red hair. You know, the nickname is described. So we do with nicknames what they did with names. We make it descriptive. What's your name? Translation, describe yourself to me. Are you willing to admit your name? Are you willing to acknowledge you are a deceiver? Because that's your name. Are you willing to acknowledge that you are a trickster? Are you willing to acknowledge you are a flawed person who has lived their lives using evil to get by, because it's all wrapped up in your name. But what God wants to know is, are you willing to fess up to who you really are when you're alone with him, when you're wrestling with him? Now, your name may not be Jacob. Maybe your name is Liar. Maybe your name isn't Jacob, but your name is Cheetah. Maybe your name isn't Jacob, but maybe your name is Luster. Maybe your name isn't Jacob, but your name is Stealer. Maybe your name isn't Jacob, but maybe your name is Racist. What is your name? What is that character in your life that is against the will and character of God that keeps him from blessing you? And he will wrestle with you until you say your name. Even if he has to dislocate your hip to get there. What is your name? He says, my name is Jacob. I'm the deceiver. Verse 28. He says, your name shall no longer be Jacob. I'm going to change your name. Meaning, I'm going to change your character. But your name will now be Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Ooh. God says, I got a new reality for you, Jacob. And that new reality is you're going to experience what it looks like when I run the show in your life. God prevails. You're going to experience what it looks like when I show up to turn something around, because it's God's prevail. You won't have to live your life with trickery anymore. You won't have to be a deceiver anymore. You won't have to try to fix it yourself anymore, because I'm going to change your name. See, some of us have a name called education. Because we think because we got a BA and an MBA and a PhD that my education has made me self-sufficient. Well, I'm going to tell you now, God's going to change your name. Some of us have a name called money because we define our sufficiency by our bank account and by our credit cards. But I want to tell you now, if you want to experience God, he's going to try to change your name. Some of us have a name called relationships because we got all the hookups we need to get to where we want to go, do what we want to do, but be what we want to be. But if you want to experience God, he's going to change your name by letting the relationships fall through and not being able to pull off what you thought they would be able to pull off. In order to experience God, he will strip you of your name in order for you to know that God prevails. That the spiritual trumps the physical, and that you and I are not sufficient within ourselves. Verse 29. Then Jacob asked him and said, please tell me your name. You asked me my name. Tell me your name. Listen to the man's response. But he said, why is it that you ask me my name? See, a lot of us get like Marvin Gaye. What's going on? God says, you ought to know by now. Everything you done tried, I done blocked. Every contact you made, I done stopped. Every time you think you don't have any more debts, I let something else break down. You ought to know my name by now. It ought to be clear who you're dealing with. And so it dawned on him. So Jacob named the place, verse 30, Peniel, for he said, I have seen God. He knew his name now. I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved, because he could have killed me. See, if you only knew what God could do, that he didn't do, doesn't do, some of us should be dead right now. But because of the goodness, grace and favor of God. He brought you out, brought you through when you were thinking you were going to lose your mind. He said, I've seen God face to face, and I'm alive to talk about it. So if you still here, he ain't finished. Oh, but here's where it gets good. Here's where it gets good. Let's bring it to a close. Here's where it gets good. Now, verse 31. The sun rose upon him just as he crossed over Penuel, and he was limping on his thigh. Because Hebrews 11 verse 21 says that when he blessed his grandchildren, in order to bring them blessing, he had to lean on his staff. So years later, he's still limping. Years later, he's still limping. So if Jacob came on the stage today and you say, why are you limping? Jacob would have to say, I'm limping because I've been blessed. I'm limping because I've been blessed. Because a few years ago, I was independent. I was self-sufficient. I made it happen all by myself. God broke me down. He separated my socket. And every time I get up and try to go somewhere, I'm reminded about my weakness. I'm reminded about my dependency. I'm reminded that I can't make it without him. Every step I take, every move I make, God is reminding me, you better not get the big head, boy, because you do have another hip. I can dislocate another one if I have to. So you better remember you are totally dependent on me. And he says, and I've been blessed. But what was the blessing? When he said, I want to be blessed, he wasn't talking about something general. He was talking about verse 13, where he says, you promised that you would make of me a great name and you would give me a great land. You see, your blessing is something God has already planned to do in the past that he's not free to do yet, because you are not broke down far enough for him to be free to do it. So the blessing is not something new, it's something old that becomes new to you when you are made ready to receive it. So some of us in here need to start limping and say, God, I'm going to break my own socket so you don't have to break my socket. So